Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that every single human on Earth has completely vanished. The streets are silent. The towers are empty. You are the absolute last conscious mind left alive. In the lab, we call this the Ghost Earth experiment. This isn't a sci-fi movie. It is a clinical look at what happens to your prefrontal cortex when your evolutionary tribe filter is violently ripped away. Within the next 168 hours, the physical infrastructure of civilization will collapse into total darkness. But the real destruction happens inside your skull. Without social conditioning or digital data static, your brain faces the ultimate enemy: absolute isolation. This is the day-by-day biological timeline of what happens to the human psyche when the entire world goes cold. Day 1. The initial hour of absolute isolation triggers a severe neurochemical shockwaves. In the lab, we trace this as the total collapse of the social mirror. For your entire life, your identity has been validated by external human feedback loops, constant notifications, and social static. You existed only because others observed you. The moment that network cuts out, your brain enters a state of total sensory deprivation. Without crowds to look at or opinions to consume, the prefrontal cortex stalls. Your amygdala redlines instantly. It sends massive, toxic cortisol signals screaming through your nervous system. Your evolutionary survival matrix is panicking. It is begging for the presence of the tribe. But on a ghost Earth, there is no tribe coming to save you. Every digital validation routine you knew has been permanently erased. The screen is dead. The streets are empty. You are no longer performing for an audience. The environment is totally silent. The first 24 hours have officially breached the deep layers of the psyche. By the second day, the human brain begins resisting the silence. The nervous system can no longer tolerate the complete absence of human activity. Deep inside the cortex, perception starts bending under isolation pressure. At first, the symptoms feel minor. You begin hearing phantom sounds inside empty buildings, faint footsteps, distant movement, small noises your brain fabricates to replace the missing social environment. But nothing is actually there. Soon, time itself starts collapsing. Without conversations, schedules, or interruptions, the brain loses its normal anchors. Minutes stretch endlessly. Hours dissolve into static. Your dopamine system is now entering withdrawal. For your entire life, your reward circuitry depended on constant stimulation, notifications, conversations, human unpredictability. But on a ghost Earth, every stimulation loop has been erased. The silence becomes psychologically violent. Anxiety spikes without warning. Old memories replay repeatedly just to simulate human presence. Every shadow starts feeling alive. Every dark room feels occupied. The brain would rather invent human presence than accept absolute solitude. And deep inside your subconscious, a terrifying realization finally forms. If humanity never returns, this silence may eventually become your new reality. By the third day, isolation begins corrupting the brain's perception of reality itself. The environment no longer feels empty. It feels artificially wrong. Every location carries a strange psychological weight, as if the world has been abandoned too suddenly for the human mind to process. Your memory systems start malfunctioning. Without new social input, the brain begins recycling old thoughts repeatedly. Random childhood memories surface without warning. Forgotten conversations replay with unnatural clarity. The mind is desperately searching for emotional stimulation inside its own archives. But the damage goes deeper. Inside the visual cortex, prolonged silence starts heightening pattern detection. Shadows appear to move. Reflections feel delayed. Ordinary objects begin looking unfamiliar. The brain is becoming hypersensitive to tiny environmental details because it no longer has normal stimulation to process. Your perception of reality starts drifting. The city no longer feels like a place built for humans. It feels like the aftermath of extinction. Empty streets become psychologically oppressive. Silent buildings feel almost hostile. Every space carries the disturbing sensation that humanity vanished only moments ago. And somewhere deep inside your subconscious, another terrifying realization begins forming. You are no longer waiting for civilization to return. You are slowly adapting to its disappearance. By the fourth day, the human nervous system begins abandoning its expectation of social contact entirely. The silence no longer feels temporary. Your brain starts treating isolation as the permanent condition of existence. Something dangerous happens here. The emotional importance of humanity begins fading from your perception. Faces become distant memories instead of psychological necessities. The instinct to communicate weakens. Even the idea of another person starts feeling strangely unreal. Your behavioral patterns start mutating. Without schedules, conversations, or external accountability, the structure of civilized life begins collapsing inside the mind. You stop tracking time accurately. Hours dissolve together. Motivation becomes disconnected from purpose. The brain enters a primitive survival rhythm focused only on immediate sensation and environmental awareness. But the neurological effects intensify further. Inside the temporal lobe, prolonged isolation starts disrupting emotional processing. Your reactions flatten. Fear becomes quieter. Excitement disappears almost completely. The emotional highs and lows that once defined normal human experience begin fading into chemical numbness. And slowly, another transformation begins. The empty world stops feeling hostile. It starts feeling peaceful. For the first time since humanity disappeared, your brain experiences a disturbing form of psychological acceptance. The crowded noise of civilization no longer feels necessary. The silence feels cleaner, simpler, almost comforting. By day 4, the most dangerous stage has officially begun. You are no longer surviving the absence of humanity. You are beginning to prefer it. By the 5th day, isolation begins attacking the final stable structure inside the human mind, identity itself. Without social interaction, your brain loses the constant feedback required to maintain a consistent sense of self. You stop feeling connected to the person you were before the collapse. Memories no longer feel personal. Your previous routines start resembling footage from someone else's life. The psychological continuity between your past and present begins breaking apart. The mind adapts by simplifying existence. Language becomes less necessary. Internal thoughts grow quieter. Long periods pass without emotion, conversation, or purpose. Survival replaces personality. But another disturbing effect emerges. Inside deep cognitive networks, the absence of human stimulation starts weakening self-awareness itself. You stop analyzing your future. You stop questioning the silence. Even your ambitions begin feeling distant and unreal. By day 5, the transformation is no longer temporary. The world has not only become empty, it has begun erasing the version of you that once belonged to it. By the 6th day, the human brain stops waiting for civilization to return. Isolation is no longer interpreted as a disaster. It becomes the foundation of a completely new reality. Your perception starts reorganizing itself around silence. Empty streets no longer feel unnatural. The absence of human movement becomes visually normal. The mind rapidly deletes expectations that once defined ordinary life. A dangerous psychological adaptation begins forming. Without interruption, the brain creates new behavioral systems designed specifically for permanent solitude. Emotional dependency on humanity weakens further. Memory, routine, and identity begin merging into one simplified survival state. By day 6, the transformation reaches a critical stage. You are no longer remembering the old world. You are mentally evolving beyond it. By the 7th day, the final psychological separation is complete. The human mind no longer identifies with the civilization that created it. Silence becomes the default condition of existence. Your thoughts slow into pure observation. Emotional attachment to the old world disappears almost entirely. The brain adapts to isolation so deeply that humanity itself starts feeling like a distant evolutionary phase rather than a lost home. By day 7, survival is no longer the objective. You are witnessing the birth of a completely new state of consciousness.